Excellent. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon post the holiday weekend. Thank you again. This is welcome to our virtual launch of ourdipper.com. Join us every Tuesday until the end of July. We're going to keep this going. And what we've done for July is we're collaborating with Bold TV. And so, sorry, and now my daughter's walking in. And now in July, we're collaborating with Bold TV to kick off a series of events with this amazing partner. And each event will highlight different topics. And today we're really excited. And this is also a perfect opportunity for us to share a bit about Dipper, which is a tech platform for all people of color and members to create their profiles so they can access the inside scoop of which companies to join and which to stay away from. And members can also engage with each other each and every day and talk about how's work on Dipper's newsfeed. And today I also have Philip from Bold TV. Philip, you want to tell us a bit about yourself today?
Hi, I'm Philip Michael. I'm the CEO of NICE, and I am the host of Bold Business, which is our business show on Bold TV, our amazing network.
Excellent. And Philip honored me with being a guest on his show, so we're really glad to have Philip here today. And we also have Miri Rodriguez, an award-winning storyteller, creative journalist, and global head of internships at Microsoft. She is a renowned keynote speaker and international thought leader on brand storytelling, personal branding, and youth entrepreneurship. Previous clients include Adobe, Walmart, and this discussion, we hope to learn a bit more about branding. So if you can also pick up her book called Brand Storytelling, correct? And you can tell us the best place to find your book too. So Miri, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jacinta. Hello, Philip. I'm excited to be here. Yes, my book is called Brand Storytelling, and it is about using stories to brand yourself best, using that technique that is 22 times more memorable than any piece of information you will ever share. If it's told in a story, people will remember it. It'll be empathetic. It'll be emotional in nature. So yeah, I talk about that in the book. I talk about my own experience in using stories to brand yourself. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. And I agree with you. People remember stories. Yes. So it's always great to kind of frame anything you're communicating if you want it to resonate in that story. And so what really attracted you to storytelling and just kind of how that encompasses branding as well?
Yeah, it began with my own journey at Microsoft. Actually, when I started, I shared a story. I began sharing a personal story, something that happened to me as a Latina in tech. Not an easy feat. I think all of us can say that minority groups are always kind of catching up, in the world. And so that was true for me coming into the tech industry, and certainly not easy. So I began to use stories to confine my communities, to share with people my own experiences. And that led me to really look at stories as a culture shifting blueprint. It wasn't just telling a story, it was connecting people at the human level. And actually, I became a storyteller later on. I was asked to do this for our own engineering group at Microsoft for data and AI during our digital transformation phase at Microsoft. So it really became the dream job after I had used these techniques for my own personal brand building. I talk often about using your origin story to build your brand. It is the one thing that you have that nobody else has. It's your story, right? A resume can look the same side by side, but what gives it depth is how you got there. What's the story behind it? How did you achieve that accomplishment? So there's lots to be said about our origin story and what got us here and where we're going next. And we own that. Nobody else does.
That's great. And how have you kind of seen people frame their story effectively in a short period of time? Because some people are very long-winded storytellers.
Yeah.
Are there any tips about how to kind of frame that? And then I'm sure, folks like Philip, how do you make it measurable too? Something that some people can actually quantify and kind of put a number to. if you have
Oh,
any.
I like that. I'm gonna tune real good into what Philip is gonna say about quantifying, because I do have my theories around that. So Philip, can't wait to hear your theory. For me, how to really package up a story. I really know the story arc is always the same. It's basically what we know as the basic story arc is the exposition, the rise in action, the climax, fall in action, the conclusion. But truly, we are all not just storytellers, we're story designers. And there are multiple ways to tell a story. A lot of us are very familiar with the hero's journey storytelling technique. Someone invented that, right? Someone decided that was a great way to tell a story of transformation in someone's life. Just like that, we also have the power to build our own storytelling structure and elements and play that up however we want. There are 8 basic storytelling structures, the monomyth or the hero's journey being one of them. But who's to say those are the only ones we can use? We do have the power to build our own stories, to start with the climax or start with the conclusion, wrap it around and mix and match. Really, it is the dynamic of our own persona in that relationship that we design for the audience, right? The story persona is the experience that we give the story so it can connect with the audience. So when you think about long-winded stories or short, 1-minute stories, they both serve a purpose and they're both for a different audience. So there's no right or wrong way to tell a story. There's certainly ways to actually measure its success. So I'm going to pass it on to Philip to see what he says about measuring and benchmarking stories.
Well, thank you for that. It's not as much measuring stories. I'd like to actually expound on that point about storytelling. So storytelling lies at the crux, as a tech entrepreneur, it's at the crux of everything that I do from the standpoint of conveying what it is that we do and why. And even what I do on Bold TV, which is think about how the news is disseminated and even labeled story. Did you read this story? Even the way I look at storytelling, the way I look at stories, period, is that the words or the message itself is almost like the hardware, but the story is like the iOS, the operating system, the soul of the message that allows it to be conveyed from sender to receiver. So, and how does that work in practice? Now, in terms of what I do on the business end, our stated mission is to help 100,000 people of color become millionaires by the end of the decade. So everything we do is told through that lens. Everything we decide to do is stress tested against that basic question. Does this bring us closer to this? Now, how does that relate to storytelling? Everything, again, comes with that. And again, if you think about anything in life worthwhile throughout the thousands, if not millions of years, I'm pretty sure they told stories back then too, in the caveman days. If you look at when we tell, what do they call it? When you tell tales, even, how do I say this? Even in mythology, let's use mythology. Is all conveyed through story. There's protagonist, antagonist, there's a beginning, middle, the end, there's a climax, and there's a takeaway. Sometimes there's a cliffhanger if we need a second edition. So it goes in the crux of everything we do as human beings, because this is how we can understand and convey stuff. So for business owners, I think it's so important. I think it lies at the heart of anything worthwhile marketing-wise, the ability to tell a story in a way that resonates with the receiver. Without it, you just have a bunch of noise.
Exactly. And I think what's really exciting too is stories are fundamental to being able to convey yourself in business and in the personal life. But we as people of color, we are expert storytellers. That is how it is, a part of our DNA in how we've gotten messages across. So it really can become, fun. It's a practice that's kind of been passed down to us that we can put in tech, we can put in finance, whatever sort of business or industry that we're in, we can really jump into that. Philip, you had something to add?
Yeah, no, but it's just to your point where you say, because if you look at a lot of startups that go out there and try to raise money or they try to gain traction for their business, they're fundamentally creating this disconnect between this, sender and receiver. Yeah. They're not able to articulate their why or tell the story. They get caught up in these boilerplate jargon phrases that doesn't resonate with anybody's pain point. Because you have to understand the pain point, emotional resonance, this and that, in order to tell your story as a business. So when you see a lot of times people with great ideas, people with tremendous talent, charisma, whatever, their inability to tell a story very, very often is one of the primary reasons why it may not be getting the traction that it should have. And that's something that's just universal. I can see. So that's if there's something that people can take away from that, Miri, what you're saying, I think it's an amazing thing to really hone in on that particular skill, learning how to create narratives that people can follow.
Yeah, absolutely. And Miri, I'm going to go a little off script though here because I know a lot of people are in the job search right now.
Yeah.
And so, and you running an internship, global internship program, I'm sure you see a lot of resumes.
Yeah.
So are there things that you have really found people can do effectively to tell their story on a resume? And are there things you think people should absolutely not do? Is there something you think someone should really, focus on and hone in on?
Yeah, Philip, I love how you framed what you were talking about in terms of the importance of storytelling for business. And we are a business. Individually, we're the CEO of our lives, right? So there is investment in us that companies are going to make. So think of them as shareholders. So as we present our pitch, just like as any small business would, it's the same idea. So a resume is your pitch, right? Is the initial kind of view of that pitch. And there's so much that we can do with that real estate to be able to articulate our story. The story is the difference between I went to such school and got a 4.0 GPA to, my parents had to work so many jobs to get me there, right? So there's an opportunity to enable what core values you represent as an individual, what you stand for. And so you think of a company like Microsoft, right? And so we articulate as a brand, we tell our story and we articulate our core values. We talk about what we stand for, what we don't stand for, what we are, set on our mission, what it is. And so that is an opportunity for candidates to look and go, hey, do I align to those core values, first of all? Because if you're not, then you shouldn't even be applying to that job to start with, right? So do you align to what the brand stands for, to those core values? And if you do, pick out those core values and be able to articulate, demonstrate that passion or that experience within that core value, whether it is growth mindset, for example, whether it is give. We're a company that really prides ourselves in giving to the community. How have you given to the community? Where can you showcase that you were a volunteer or that you did this kind of work that gave back? That's the kind of thing that speaks to the story of Microsoft plus your story aligning and converging, really becoming one. And so we could see you there. We could see you as part of our DNA. So whenever that works for any company, look at the company, study their brand, study their story, study what they're about. And then see how you and your story aligns to that and how you want to align. And if you don't, do the job to be able to align it, participate in some activities, be able to articulate that demonstrated passion. A lot of people will say, this is a don't. I'm passionate about this. Okay, well, how do I know that? Right? I call it demonstrated passion. How do I know you're passionate? You've had to demonstrate that passion somewhere, and that's by time. You've given your time to demonstrate where you really are passionate about something. Your story tells it.
I love that. Philip, did you were leaning in. Was there something you wanted to say?
No, I was just listening. That's one of the things. I naturally I try to listen intently to take it all in, but sometimes people need help having their listening activated because there's so many distractions, which again underscores the point of why it's so important to know how to articulate correctly. And again, tying it around storytelling, it's just such a profound thing. I think it's an excellent topic. I don't think it's talked about enough.
And you don't have to be perfect at it, when you first get started. I think, I have found it's great to practice on people. Like you said, you have investor. I loved how you said, like, you are a business, you are the CEO of yourself. And it's like, you have people who might be on your own board of directors. And so you can kind of use them to bounce ideas off of, or if you're looking to jump into a new endeavor. And someone in the comments, I want to make sure that we address this because I know people are chiming in and I love it. I love to be engaged with the audience as much as we can. So someone asked, do you have any suggestions when it pertains to taking this information and taking it to life growth instead of actually business and money management? How would one take this approach with situations that can be looked at from a business angle to grab hold of the situation for personal growth? And let's see, someone else commented, so my screen moves, and growth that can be taught to others in the same situation. So anything on like personal growth. I think you mentioned a little bit about if you think social engagement is important for an organization to have, then you should volunteer. You should be doing that. But anything kind of related to personal growth and storytelling?
Yeah, I can chime in. And Philip, I'd love to hear your perspective as well. So I won't take up all the time, but I really often talk about your personal brand. It is not your professional life. Your brand is everything that you are. I'm a sister, I'm a mom, I'm a worker, I'm a friend, I'm so many things, and that makes up who I am. So it's back to the character and the core values that you represent as your brand that serves you in life and in business. And it should not be disjointed at all. I often talk about people creating contracts with themselves about how they're going to do business in life. And so it serves, and actually that's what keeps the brand authentic on both ends, is who you are in and outside of your job, area or your job description. And once that job description is gone, I also say, your job doesn't define you, it refines you. So you're enabling skill sets at the job that you can actually build also for your personal growth. So it's this give and take that you're using your job as a platform to bring up your skill sets, whether they're hard skill sets or soft skills, and you can actually build that in your personal life, in your relationships, and vice versa, right? So we build relationships and we bring that also to the work. So not thinking about those things separate or mutually exclusive. We feed ourselves from both ends and from both platforms, and that builds the brand. But it's back to what you want to become. It's back to the story that you want to tell, and you have all the control out of it. So if you allow a job to define you, you lose yourself in the process. If you allow life circumstances or life culture or society to define you, you lose your place, as an individual. So you have to set out those things for yourself. I grew up with very distinctive core values as a Pentecostal Christian, and I had to look back and go, does it serve me right now and the person that I want to become or the person that I aspire to be? Some of them did, and I have kept those values. Other, I was like, not so much. I don't want to do life this way, so I had to divorce those values. So same thing with every platform we encounter, including the job. We are able to individually decide and define who we're going to become with that platform, and allowing that to build our story.
Love that. And anything, Philip, you want to add about how that kind of ties to your personal journey too, or anything?
It's a personal journey. That's just, Miri mentioned the hero's journey, and again, that's the first person perspective. What I'd like to share, though, that I think can be of value is that when people are trying to, again, let's tie it around the concept of storytelling. One thing that people make a mistake of doing, and it's a very basic mistake, but people sometimes overthink and they get too far into the weeds, dive into the weeds of the theorems and the ideas and the hypotheticals, and they get away from the core. Most people operate at like a very basic level. So what am I getting at with this? Okay, let's say you're putting up a landing page, or you're trying to introduce a new product. There's a form of storytelling that goes into that. Think about how news is presented. When you see a headline, the visual, you see if there's a story about somebody got arrested, they're going to show a picture of somebody that looks, if it's a celebrity where he looks real messed up and things like this, it's because that's tied into the story. There's a visual component in the storytelling. Now, let's say, again, going back to the example of the landing page. Let's say the copy that goes up there, whatever it is, like buy my new t-shirts, exclusive, limited edition, whatever. Everything around the words by themselves are not enough. How does it feel? There's like an emotional form of storytelling. There's a story arc emotionally. Again, whenever we do something, I look at how does it feel? It's not just the words, like the concept of congruence. Is it tying together with the visual? Is the visual telling me the story? I always say when you do something, and this is a concept I learned from journalism, is that if something raises more questions than it answers, get rid of it. You got to take people on a journey, grab them by the hand. Or another analogy, if you go on a highway with no potholes, just smooth takeoff. And a bad story is where there's potholes and you stop, and that's when you lose people. So that's conceptually, I would say to people, let's say it's a landing page, it's an ad, it's any type of stuff that you want to introduce. Make sure there's a clear message that is with no friction, and then tell it block by block and with the words, visually, emotionally, psychologically, and have it all come together and be congruent. That's the main thing. And conceptually, you can apply that across the board. Whether, again, it goes to a resume for all intents and purposes. People they will hire. I'm not dumping on the people that coach people to do resumes. I'm just saying, oh, this is written a certain way. No, you got to think about the receiver. What do they care about? What they want to see? How do you convey your passion? How have you demonstrated your passion? Because at the end of the day, that's a mini pitch deck for somebody to invest in you to do something. No different than a founder that's looking to go out and raise money from investors. It's not about what you think is necessary. It's like, what does the receiver see? And does it and ultimately that's everything that's all that matters. So it's just some basic high level conceptual tips that I would say that people can use to integrate this into their operations, marketing, and even when you recruit people, what's the story that you're telling? So is that the crux of everything you do? So it's so important, super important.
Yes, I completely agree, because it's almost like before you start talking and telling your story, listening and taking the cues of like who are you talking to?
Yes.
Like, and how is this person going to possibly like help grow my personal brand, my business, or how can I possibly help them? And like, what opportunities could there be? And, before we close out, I also want to give, a few people have asked, how do they get in touch with the two of you? How can they follow your content? So, because I know we all have a lot more to say, but time is limited. So if you want to just share how people can follow you, where they should look out for you on, feel free, jump in and do that.
Yeah, so people can follow me at Miri Rod, mirirod.com, Miri Rod on Twitter, Miri Rod on Instagram. I also have a brand storytelling Instagram where I share specifically tips on storytelling building, and storytelling designing, which is exactly what Philip was talking about, right? I talk about the feeling. How do you develop that universal truth, which is that feeling we want to give every time we show up as a brand, as a personal brand or a corporate brand. We have to ask ourselves, what does the audience want, and how do we show up that leaves them with that feeling? So we'll talk about that. So Miri Rod is where you can find me, MIRIROD.
All right. I want to add to the point, because I think, and again, we've talked about this a lot with storytelling. I don't want people to get it confused or conflated with something that you read in a cartoon. It's not necessarily about. It's just something as clear, as simple as articulating your point accurately in a way that the receiver receives what's in here. Because most people think that words are an extension of thought, and therefore people will receive it that way. They're not. They're a mechanism which you try to articulate thought, and there's a massive distance that happens there. And this is how miscommunication, misunderstandings happen, and things of that nature. So it's so important to meet people where they are to receive them, so they can receive the message that you have. So it's not about cartoons or anything like that. It's simply a matter of conveying correctly. Now, where can people follow me? They can follow me on Instagram, YFWTB. They can find me. I put out videos every day. It's about financial literacy and tips and things of that nature. And there's actually something, if you ever watch my stuff, on the surface, I'm like a magician giving up his tricks now. But it's like what I do is I share information that's widely available, but what it really does is it conveys it treats underlying limiting beliefs around money by articulating in a way that people can understand, in concepts that they can see on a day-to-day basis. And that's what really makes it compelling. So that's a form of storytelling. But that's not where you would get in touch with me, because there's too much going on there. But on LinkedIn or at Bold TV. And if people have questions, they can hit me up and I answer them on the show. So if they want to talk to me, and if I have anything that they feel is worthwhile listening to, yes, just feel free to come and hit me up.
You do. Philip, you're always dropping amazing content. And I love what you said about how words articulate thought. It's 100% accurate. And so I just want to thank everyone for joining us, especially our two wonderful guests today. And professionals of color can connect with us on ourdipper.com right now by signing up, completing your profile at ourdipper.com. So you can unpack all the gems today's guests will drop. We'll also share a recording of this on our YouTube channel, so you can come back to it, and you can possibly even see me shooing away my 7-year-old as she interrupts this call. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and have a great rest of the day.